Got no money on my mind, got no money on my mind, got no money on my mind.
Hey, folks, welcome to the Jason Wright Show, Money Monday. Look, this is the episode dedicated to improving our finances, always in all ways. Part of our overall improvement has to be good stewards of our resources, and that's what Mondays are for on the Jason Wright Show. So with that in mind, let's go. Katy, we're back with another episode of Money Monday. How have you been since we last spoke?
Pretty good. I had a birthday,
Oh, happy birthday.
so I'm a year wiser, I hope.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to ask, but I know you're younger than me, so, it doesn't matter. But I hope you had a fantastic birthday.
I did. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, so this is going to be a cool episode. And I just want to preface this with to all the listeners, this is going to be fun because Katy went out and solicited some questions for today's show so that we could tackle them. We may agree, we may disagree, but we're going to try our best to come up with the best answers possible for these folks' questions. And so for everyone that submitted a question, thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And if you have questions for us, bring it. We want to kind of talk through some of these real life situations that people find themselves in, whether it's trying to figure out how to start a business and how to manage it properly, how to buy your first home, your first car with cash, whatever the case may be. Katy and I want to cover it. This is what she does every single day. I'm just kind of a practitioner here. I've done it the right way at times. I've done it the wrong way at times. But now I'm old, so I think about this thing kind of figured out. And the money game it's not rocket science, thank God, because Lord knows I would if life depended on me being a rocket scientist, my family would starve. And so Katy and I just want to bring some very practical solutions for a lot of your money questions and troubles. And that's what we're gonna be covering today. And we will have another episode like this. And we actually think that the next time we get together, we were just talking about before we came on, we might actually get some live guests to come on here and try to help walk them through some of these strategies. So with that, all right, so Katy, can I get into my first question? Because this will show you the level of intelligence of my my listener. Not but actually my close friends who are
One.
listeners. Yeah, right. My one close friend that's a listener. You ready for this? Okay, so here was
Absolutely.
the question posed whenever he saw Katy's question that she asked about for this episode. Matt Wagner, that's Mattwagner, everyone, Matt Wagner over in the United Kingdom. This was Matt's question, okay? It was, let me find it. Oh, darn it. Now I get through all that. Oh, here we go. What's the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? And I think it's unladen. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So Matt's question for Money Monday was,
'Kay.
what's the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? So it's okay to, you and I have a crack team of researchers. I mean, we have a big
Yes.
staff behind us. We've got minions, people fetching our coffee, going out. I mean, we're
Mhm.
just like a couple of Miranda Priestleys with all these people just out there running around. And so I said, okay, research team, come here, AKA ChatGPT, get me an answer to this question. And here's what we found.
'Kay.
And this is how I responded on behalf of both of us. Dear Mr. Wagner, our team of researchers has received your question, and after much debate and consternation, we have determined the following. The airspeed velocity of an unladen European swallow is approximately 25 miles per hour. For those of you on the other side of the pond, that would be 40 kilometers per hour. However, it's essential to specify whether you're referring to an African or European swallow, as the answer famously changes in the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Please tune into the Jason Wright Show Money Monday, where your question will be answered or addressed on air, as is the case right now in real time. Keep improving always in always. So, Matt Wagner, there's the answer to your question. So, I say from now, it can only go downhill from there, Katy. Am I right?
Yeah. I mean, that was a wonderful question to start off to start off with. And way to stay on topic too, right?
Exactly what we're here for. All right, so now trying to get into the kind of the serious side without being too serious, let's go into the first question because this involves something that there's a subtopic to the first question that was posed to you that I want to dig into,
Yes.
but here it is.
Okay.
Years ago, I co-signed a student loan for my daughter. She wasn't paying them back, and it began affecting my credit score. So I started paying them back. I want to refinance the loans in my daughter's name so I am off of them, but she won't sign or agree to it. She also is taking the tax break on the interest paid, even though she's not paying them. Wow. Our original agreement was she would pay off the loan when she started working. She's now 28. Is there something I can do to get out of this situation or make my daughter start paying them back? Wow, that's so sad on a whole lot of levels. So
Yeah.
the first thing to the mom, I'd just like to
Yeah.
say, praying for you, sister. That's sad. That's just so what's your initial thoughts on this?
So my initial thoughts are you cannot make somebody refinance anything.
Yeah.
Like they have to be the ones to initiate it. They're the ones that have to sign it. And if you co-sign a loan, you are guaranteeing that it will get paid back. So that means if the primary person on the loan does not pay it back, you are saying, I will then pay it.
Yeah.
So that and outside of student loans, if you just think about like a car loan or a personal loan or something else, banks will loan dogs and dead people money.
Yep.
And they are not going to let this person take out a loan. Like that's that's saying a lot. They don't think that that person's going to pay it back.
Yep.
But you're saying, "Oh, it's okay. I'll just make sure that they pay it back." Well, this is the exact reason why you should never co-sign a loan with somebody. That you're saying that you will pay it back. Now, it really does break my heart for anybody in a situation where the primary person is no longer paying it back. I would just tell mom, listen, you're just gonna have to pay it back. And she says that she's now 28. It doesn't say anything about what her work status is. I would assume that if she's 28, she's got a job. I would also maybe like if you're wanting that tax credit and you're going to be paying those student loans back anyways, th- possibly consider now, and this would just mean that like you're totally letting your daughter off the hook. You should consider maybe refinancing them in your name so that you are the one who's getting that tax break. If you're okay with saying, you know what, I'm just gonna swallow this, like I'm gonna pay them back because it's affecting my credit.
Yep.
But then I mean, then there's that whole like parent thing of like teaching them a lesson, but like how much do you want to teach her a lesson when it's then going to affect your credit score? There's not a win-win in this situation at all. There just isn't.
So the subcategory, you nailed it right there at the first, is the co-signing part. First of all, to
Mhm.
the listener, here's the biggest lesson that I can tell you from my perspective is if you're going to co-sign, it's kind of like, okay, this is a relative situation, right? There's relatives involved. It's mother daughter. You don't loan your relatives money; you give it to them. If they pay you back,
Yes.
cool, but they're probably not going to. And for the sake of your relationship with your family member, you have got to have the attitude, we may call this a loan, but I'm giving them the money. Otherwise, 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna pay you back. It's gonna cause friction. If you truly give them the loan with the expectation that they're gonna pay you back, you're setting yourself up for failure. It's the exact same thing with co-signing. Co-signing is such a serious deal. Katie, it even tells us in the Bible to not co-sign loans. It's that big of a
Yes.
deal. You don't assume the debts of other people. And we as parents, we get in these situations where we want to help our children. We think that we're doing the right thing. We think it's our responsibility, but you're doing them no favors by putting yourself on the hook and causing a wedge between them. I remember whenever I bought my first company, uh, my I had gone to my dad whenever I was looking at buying this first business, and I told him I might need some help. And my father, to his credit, he said, "You know what? Yeah, I want to help you." And then at the end of it, I finally said, "No, Dad, I don't want you to. I don't want." He said, "No." He said, "It's okay." He said, I'll co-sign if if you need me to for because I was getting this big building loan or might have needed a line of credit or something." I said, "No, nope, because if it succeeds, I want it to be on me. If it fails, I don't want anybody getting hurt." So I didn't do it. And I remember it was tough. It was a tough road to hoe, but I did it. And I felt so much better at the end of it, having not taken any co-signers, anybody coming alongside me and doing that. And I actually had and just here's how you have the conversation with that family member, I think, because 'cause I've had to have this conversation really recently. I have a family member that has spent their life in a lot of trouble, and, and I love this family member, and I don't want and we're just kind of it's a member that's been out of my life for a long time. We're just kinda reconnecting, and I don't want anything to jeopardize just my relationship with this person, and nothing comes between 2 people like money. Money just destroys so many
Yes.
lives, and so he came to me and was asking for me to co-sign on a loan, and I said and it was hard. Everything in me wanted to. I want to make his life as easy as possible, but also know I'm not doing him any favors, so I said, "You know what? No, because I don't want our relationship to ever be defined in any way by money or finances. I don't want that to ever be a part of our relationship. It's just not I'm just not gonna allow that in." And it's tough. So I think you're absolutely correct in what you said on just the whole co-signing thing. Secondly, with
Yeah.
student
And
loans, that student loans are a tricky one. A lot of parents are using
Mhm.
those to make up for the money they didn't save if they want to pay for their kids' college. And it's kind of I can tell you so my girls, we saved, paid so they graduated debt-free from college, never had to do college loans, but I can tell you, the attitude that a lot of these kids have, and as listening to my daughters think that parents out there are cruel who didn't save for their kids and, like, or their friends that are graduating and having to pay back their student loans, they're just like, "I don't understand this. Why would their parents do that?" And I'm like so if they have that attitude, then there's a good chance that parents, if you are thinking that co-signing on student loans for your kids, that they think, well, it's my responsibility and mom and dad are helping me, you better have that conversation because there's a good chance that they just think, no, this is your responsibility, mom and dad, to make sure I get a secondary education. And if you have to borrow this money, fine, it's on you how it gets paid back. So I think it's just it goes from don't co-sign to really clear communication, right?
yeah, absolutely. And going back to the your family member
Hmm.
um situation, the borrower is always slaves to the lender. And so when you co-sign, even though they are not borrowing from you, you're still saying that they're going to pay it back. And so it's almost like you shift that relationship into a slave master uh, like situation. And it's just it makes things sticky, and Christmas seems different,
Yep.
Thanksgiving seems different. If you're not paying it back, you want to avoid them because you've got shame wrapped around and
Hmm.
embarrassment that it didn't turn out the way that you hoped it. It just is not it is not a good situation. And even if you are the person who's really wanting to borrow the money and you're the one asking for a cosigner, think that through. Do you really want to be hiding from that person if
Exactly.
things don't go well? Like,
Exactly.
it's just sticky. And then going back to the your daughter's friends who ended up having to get student loans, parents paying for their children's education is a blessing.
Mhm.
That is not an entitlement, and there are ways to to pay for college without having to go into debt. Now that has to start off with clear communication, really, um, prior to starting high school. Because
Yep.
if you are putting the cost of further education on the child, they need to have and be aware of that at least 4 years leading up to that. And you're like, I'm talking to a 14-year-old, 15-year-old. How are they even supposed to like understand that? But being clear is being kind. And if they have goals to go to a college and get a secondary education, that's wonderful. But let's also not just be like, "Oh, senior year, we didn't save for you, so now it's all on you," and they had no idea.
Yep.
Um, and you can be applying for scholarships, they can be working, and then the biggest, and I could get on a soapbox on paying for college debt free is school choice.
Mm-hmm.
I live in just north of Tulsa, and anybody who lives in the county of Tulsa can go to, it's either Tulsa Tech or Tulsa Community College. I can't remember. There's two 2-year degree schools here. They can go and not pay tuition if they graduated from high
Wow.
school and live in Tulsa County.
Wow.
That's free education.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and yes, it's not the experience with the big oak trees and like college game day and all of that. But listen, free is free. And you're going to be paying 20 grand your first year at a 4-year school or more, or you can get that free by and living at home, so you're not having to pay room and board. I mean, there's just so many ways, and it shouldn't be an entitlement thing, and it's not. So
And that
yeah,
brings up the
that's my 2
conversation that
cents.
is, yeah, we could do a whole topic just on financing college. And,
Mhm.
I have to put my kind of cynical pants aside whenever I start talking about the modern day university system, because essentially, like here in Tyler, Texas, we have the University of Texas at Tyler. Fantastic
Mhm.
4-year university where a lot of kids, they can go here and you could pay for 4 years of UT Tyler for what I was paying for 1 semester at Abbey at the University of Colorado. And
Oh
now,
gosh.
yeah, it was such a whipping. But here's what
Yeah.
happened, and things have changed. When I was the first member of my family to graduate from college, I put myself through undergrad and graduate school for that matter, but it was supposed to be, you're supposed to be, that's another thing too, that's another topic. If you're going to get an MBA or law school, the idea that your parents are supposed to also pay for that, that's just crazy town in my book, but whatever.
Mhm.
And so I looked at it differently. I felt so fortunate that I was, and so blessed that I got my college degree. I told my girls when they were really little, if you can get in, I'm going to get you there. That's it. And now, though, if I
Yeah.
were doing it all over again, there's no way, because what we hear about is what you mentioned, that experience, the college experience. Well, let me tell you something. If you're really talented, the market doesn't really care that much anymore about now. If you tap into your network, if Rylan taps into her University of Alabama network, Abby into her University of Colorado network, I suppose. But boy, that's a big toll to pay. Whenever you could go
Yeah.
to one of these regional schools, one of the satellite schools of a major system like UT or A&M, where I mean, I know you went to
Mhm.
A&M. I got relatives that, yeah,
Big
there you go. I've got 2 a niece at, West Texas A&M, and I have
Mhm.
a nephew, her brother, at A&M Corpus Christi, and those are great schools, and, you get the education, and you don't spend a fortune, and also, like you were talking about, these community colleges, I don't know. I guess that's the thing, and my brother and my sister, they were smarter than me, because they told their kids, you can go anywhere you wanna go, and we'll pay for it, but as long as it's in state, as long as it's in Texas.
Mhm.
If it's outside of Texas, you make up the difference, and I thought that was brilliant. So, therefore, all of my nieces and nephews, they went in state, whereas Rylan and Abby, what did they do? They both went out of state, and we paid this ridiculous premium. So, my siblings were much smarter on that, but anyway, I just think that when it comes to education, clear communication, don't cosign, and, it doesn't, and I love that what you said. It's not an entitlement. Yes, as parents, we want to give our children all that we
Mhm.
can, but I'm living proof. My dad was pretty hard on me as far as making me work at a really young age and pay a lot of my own bills of things that most kids just don't have to pay for. And when you're going through it, it's tough, but man, it's sure been better here in adulthood.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because you've got the experience.
heck yeah, and you
You
just
got the
you
experience of it.
you
Yeah.
don't you never there's no one ever giving you the thing, then you never expect it. You don't you
Mhm.
realize it's up to you. And I'll tell you another thing, folks. Parents, listen to this, or family members. Here's what happens. I learned this a great book, Toxic Charity. Whenever I was preparing for this nonprofit that we were founding here in Tyler, I read this book. And one of the things that the author says, I wish I could call his name, I'm drawing a blank. He says, what begins as appreciation always ends up as expectation and then leads to major frustration. And it happens every time. You do it once, "Oh, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful." But the first time they come back needing help again, if you don't do it, it has become an expectation. They're gonna get angry, and they're gonna act like this girl you mentioned here. "No, how dare you, mom? What are you, crazy? No, I'm not gonna do this." So, anyway,
Yeah.
good opener, good opener. Lot of
Yeah.
lessons in there.
Yeah.
Alright, so
Absolutely.
alright, this is a good one too, and I've got some definite
Mhm.
thoughts on this one. I'm thinking of going into business with my cousin. What are some things I need to know or think about if going into business with someone? What are your thoughts on that one? Because
Mm.
I got a bunch of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that you would be perfect to answer this.
Okay.
The things that I really caution anybody who's thinking about doing a partnership when it comes to business is, going over the 5 Ds. So, what happens when one of the 2 partners becomes disinterested? What happens when they become disabled and can no longer work? What happens if they get a divorce? Because
Mhm,
the spouse then has also partial ownership of this
mhm,
company. What happens if they take out debt without you knowing? And
mhm.
oh goodness, what is the 50? I can't remember the 50. I'll have to look it up. But I mean, it's all the uncomfortable conversation that you need to have when you're not in that situation.
That's exactly
Because
right.
when you get in that situation, the emotions start rising, and it's then somebody may feel defensive and it's just not, you need to have a game plan of how you will handle it and put it down on paper so that you can both reference back to it when that time comes, because
Mm,
something is going to happen where you're going to have to deal with one of those 5.
I could not agree more. So here's kind of my take on it. First of all, you need to treat this like you're going into a marriage because very much so everything applies. The
Mhm.
communication, you're
Yes.
and also you need to you need to realize something. There will come a point where you think you're outworking your partner. And guess what? Here's what's going to be so weird and kooky in Crazy Town is they are thinking the exact same thing. They think they're outworking you. And the fact is
Yeah.
both of you are probably working your tail off, maybe, and it's relative as to what's considered more work and what's not, but it's going to happen. Secondly, partners don't go away, bankers do. So what I would tell you is
Mhm.
if you are going into a partnership because you can't because as a way to capitalize your business, if it's I can go to a bank and I can borrow the capital or I can raise a fund where it's all minority shareholders, they have no say so. It's literally just they're betting on me as a horse. They're just saying, "I'm putting my money with Jason Wright Inc. because I believe that if I put in 2, I'll get 5 back." I have no say so. It's just like buying stock. I'm willing to buy
Right.
if you're willing to do that, okay, that's one thing. But if you're looking at taking on a partner to finance your business, always look for debt. And that's weird for us to say because we want to be debt free. If you
Mhm.
can't finance a business,
Yeah.
and I try, that's the way I recommend is try to operate on a cash basis, either right from the get go or as quickly as possible. But the good news is debt goes away. and partners do not. So that's something to always consider. And then it goes back to what we were talking about right here. It's a family member. Whew. I mean, that is a tough one because and the thing is what
Yeah.
Katie said, it makes so much sense. Always spell out the worst day of your partnership you could possibly imagine. You know, spell it out, what that looks like, and what are you going to do when that day comes. And here's what'll happen: you're going to have that conversation, and both of you are going to sit there and go, "We know this will never happen. We know this would never happen."
Right.
And you might be right. It might never happen, but guess what? There's a darn good chance it will. It changes everything, just like marriage. People think, well, if we live together for 2 years and then get married, nothing will change. The hell it won't. You're delusional if you think that.
Yeah.
It changes everything when you are legally bound to another person. And then when you put business into the mix, and in this one, it goes to going into business with my cousin. Well, if you're close enough to go into business with them, you probably do spend Thanksgiving and Christmas with them. And
Yes.
if something's gone bad in the business, guess what you're going to be talking about while the Dallas Cowboys are playing Washington over Thanksgiving? You're going to be, talking business, and I don't know. It just not saying don't do it. I'm not at all
Mhm.
saying don't do it. As a matter of fact, I think it's one of the reasons why my stepmother and my stepbrother have been so very successful. They went into business together, and because of that, they both had someone there at all times as their company grew that they knew they could trust. I mean,
Yeah.
it was mother and son, and both of them had a connection and a respect and a loyalty to each other that it's hard to get. So there is that element, and if you've got that, I do see the value of that. But also, I've listened to both of them upset with the other because one was doing more work as they saw it, one was doing more work as they saw it. You just have to be very open and prepared for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I would say tread lightly on this. Don't jump into it and get some counsel. I mean, talk to people that own their own business, ask them if they did a partnership, and seek out people who do have partnerships. And
Yep.
how did you structure it? What are some hurdles that we need to look at? What are some things that we've not thought about that we do need to consider? It just and especially, I don't know, friends and family, like, you always hear, don't do business with friends or family
Hmm.
either. Well, going into business, oh my goodness, that creates a whole nother level of complexity in the relationship. I mean, it could be great, but then it could be also disastrous.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Robert Pelche, who's an incredibly successful car dealer here in Texas, and he and I used to go to lunch weekly when I first moved to Tyler and bought my first business. And he served as a mentor to me. And I had a couple of guys that wanted to back me to open more real estate offices. And so I went to Robert and I said, "What do you think about this?" And well, he said, "You're already married, right?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, everything perfect in that, no bad days, everything's wonderful." I said, "Well, no, I mean, it's a typical marriage." He said, "Okay, so why would you want another one?" And he said, "Because that's what you're going to get." And he said, "Here's what I do." And here's how he's always run his businesses. Now, Robert, if you're a general manager at one of Robert's dealerships, you get compensated very, very well. And his take on it, and it's something that has always stuck with me, is I would rather overpay my senior managers than bring on partnerships. Because when you do that, and this is something to think about for those of you who think that, well, I've got to give up equity to get the best and brightest. Not necessarily. Now, granted, it can certainly help, but you would be surprised if you can afford it. And of course, each scenario is different, but if you can afford to bring someone on and pay them as their partner. Great example of this, Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A does not have quote unquote franchisees. What Chick-fil-A does is you pay $5,000 to be a partner. And what they do is if you're a partner in Chick-fil-A, now they may have changed some of this, but to my knowledge, this is still the case. If you're an operator, that's what they call them. If you're an operator of a Chick-fil-A, of which you can only operate no more than 3, I believe, and you share in the net. And I think it's pretty steep. I think it's like you get a 50-50 net share agreement. So you don't own the real estate. You do not determine the location. You have nothing to sell when you're ready to retire. It goes to another would-be operator, either an existing operator or someone that's worked their way up and they're in the stable waiting to become an operator, but you never own anything. But I've never met a broke Chick-fil-A operator. They make a lot of
Oh,
money. But and it's worth it because the person that's operating it, it's kinda good for them. They go, "Well, I also don't have to take on the burden of owning the real estate, and what if things go wrong?" And so there
right.
are opportunities like that. So if you're looking at setting up a business, let's say that you're starting a franchise deal or whatever, and you've listened to this and you go, "How could I do something other than bring my cousin in as my partner?" Well, maybe just figure out a way to pay them as though they were a partner. Share the revenue, share the net revenue with them. Give them
Yeah.
incentive to for the company to grow. And that should be the case in any business I think that you're building up is always let people share in the rewards, but try to maintain as much ownership as possible just because you want to maintain that relationship and one, to not burden them with the worry and the concern, let them do what they're really, really good at and not get bogged down with
Mhm.
some of the ownership things that you get into. And two, but most importantly, it's just protecting that relationship. So those are some things too that you can do as an alternative to taking on your cousin as a partner.
Yeah, and really, when I say, like, options give you power,
Hmm.
this is a great example. Sit down and come up with be creative on how you 2 could work together in this business and list out 5, 6, 7 different ways that the relationship or how you're working in the company could be, and then discuss all of them.
Yep.
Because if you're just like, "Oh, well, it just has to be a partnership," then you feel like you're backed into a corner or you're stuck in this pigeonhole, when really, when you get creative and you come up with many different ways to structure it, then it gives you power because you have the options.
That's exactly right. Very good. Very good. All right.
Yeah.
This is a good one. These are great questions. I love this one. Because I've had to look down the barrel of this gun before. Should I save for my kids' college before I save for retirement? I feel guilty saving for retirement and not college. Any advice? Wow, that's a good one. What do you think, Katy?
Yeah. All right. So my thing is, excuse me, you are going to retire. Your kids may or may not go to college.
Mm,
Just plain and simple. They may or may not go to college. They may go to a trade school, or maybe they decide to go into real estate and they do that. That that doesn't require a university degree. They may end up getting scholarships. They may end up, I mean, there's so many factors when it comes to paying and funding college, but you are going to retire. So that needs to be a priority. And when you're like, yeah, but oh my goodness, like I want to give to my child. The best gift, the absolute best that you gift you could give your child is for them to know that you are financially okay in your later years. Because if you think about it, if you spent all your money trying to send them through college and you didn't save anything and now your health is kind of waning and but you don't have enough to really retire, well then now your child is in those sandwich years of raising their own children and trying to save for their retirement, trying to save for their children's college, and now they've got this parent who doesn't have any money or enough money. And so now they're trying to handle their own household, their own children, and now that just places an even bigger burden on your child versus, okay, well, let's get creative. Let's write down some options on how we could pay for college without me having saved because we don't have that type of money. So, yeah, I say that you must save for retirement before you start saving for kids' college. And really only like 15% should be going towards retirement if you have children that are coming up for college age or if your house isn't paid off yet. 15% will get you a great start. And then anything else, anything left after that, You can save for your kids' college after that.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I also think that it's good for people to know that, if you just start and this is the tricky thing, it's like so much of life, it's so weird. All of a sudden my child is 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I go, "Oh my gosh, maybe I should start saving for college." That's just a bear. If you will start early enough, I mean, if you start at year 0 for your children and you
Mhm.
tell the grandparents, I mean, the cool thing about all these 529 plans, even though not one of my family members ever took me up on this, they all have these links that you can send to family members at Christmas to say, "Hey, if you don't wanna the kids have everything they need. Instead of toys, would you mind funding a little bit of their 529, put 100, $200, whatever you would spend on their Christmas presents, would you just
Yeah.
do this?" I mean, it just there are other ways, and you've got so much, and like you say, it's mission critical. It's guaranteed. You're going to get to a point where you don't go to the office every day, whether you like it or not. You're not going to be able to do what you do forever. Even people like me who think that they're never going to, go over the 50 threshold and all my craziness.
Yeah.
I know one day I'm going to need to supplement my income, but with that, because I'm not going to be as productive as I am now. And, but if you just start early enough, it doesn't take that much. And again, it's a gift. It's not a right.
Mhm.
The college, if you can give your kids 25 grand to say, "Hey, there you go. There's a big
Yep.
cash, amount for you. Manage the rest wisely. Go figure out how to do that's more than
Yeah.
I had, so you can do this." So I think that's very good advice is to save for your retirement, which even if
Mhm.
you don't retire, you may still be a greeter at Walmart when you're 80, but you're not gonna make enough money probably to to just be completely independent if you're not careful. So make sure you're taken care of
Yeah,
in that regard.
absolutely.
All right. So the next one, I love this. How do I know if I can afford to make my first hire in my business? I was terrible. I've been terrible at this my whole career, but I think I've got a good answer. What's your take on that one?
Well, first, you have to be very intimate with your business finances. So that means that you know all your income, all your outgo, all of your operating expenses. They should not be mixed with your personal finances at that point. You have to be making a good profit because how else are you going to be able to pay for the first hire? And I would even say, let's just say that you are able to pay them. I don't know. I'm just going to say this is going to be a part time person, 20 grand. If they are then able to help you increase your revenue by 21 grand, it's worth it.
Mm.
Um, but really crunching some numbers and maybe even before hiring, pretend like you have this person already and saving that money into an account, um, just to get that process and prove to yourself, yes, I can pay for this person. But you have hired many people, so I would love to hear what your suggestions are.
So I'm going to take it back to the very, very early days when I was faced with this question at a very low level. So I bought this office building in Tyler that would house my first real estate company, and I mowed the grass myself. I was 28, and I couldn't imagine hiring landscapers to mow the grass. So here I am. I'm the owner of this company that I've
Mhm.
acquired. I've got to completely reshape it, rebuild it, and I'm mowing the grass. And I thought to myself, "Wow, how magnanimous of me!" One, I'm saving money, and two, I'm I'm just I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Well, here's the problem. I visited with I went to a coaching session, and this guy taught me something that I will never forget and I've never abandoned. He said, "You have to figure out what your time is worth before you can make any business decisions on hiring or where you are and and how you're managing your business, especially whenever I was the president, CEO, janitor, plumber. I was all of it, network administrator, terrible, terrible bookkeeper. I was all those things. And so what I always tell small business owners is I'll ask them the question, what is your time worth? I go, what do you mean? I go, how much are you worth? Are you 150 bucks an hour? Are you 200 bucks an hour? Are you $250 an hour? How much you worth? And, and usually they have no idea. They've never even thought about it that way. Well, whenever I started putting tasks, matching them with my time that I thought I was worth at that time, I billed myself essentially at $150 an hour way back then. And I thought, okay, so literally I am paying $150 an hour to mow this yard when I could just let somebody else do it for 50 to $100, which freed me up to then go do the things that made more money. Even if, and look, this
Mhm.
may sound selfish and lazy or whatever, but even if it meant instead of at 6 o'clock at night after all the realtors had left and everything was gone, and I went out there and cut the grass till 7:30 or 8 o'clock, I could go rest and spend time with my kids,
Yeah.
which is more valuable. So then all of a sudden it becomes a matter of, is it worth paying $100 to have someone go cut my grass to get to spend that time with my children? That's then all of a sudden when you start putting tangible activities with the dollar amount and you know your own value, then it becomes then when you really start moving up and people really start paying you for your time and you start basically saying, hey, if you want me to come work for you, I'm worth about $1,000 an hour. And if you're willing for that to do that,
Yeah.
okay, we can talk. If not, then all of a sudden you start saying no to stuff because you're like, this is dumb. Why I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's not because I'm too good. It's not because, but there's an opportunity cost. And I talk about that a lot on this podcast. Every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to an infinite number of other things. So if that thing you're saying yes to, if it's gonna take away, start adding up the opportunities that you're sacrificing to say yes to that thing, and when you get to the point where you know that even though it may suck, you can't just it's not a zero-sum game. It's not as easy, and I learned this early. I made the horrible mistake of thinking in my mind, I there's no way I can pay a manager, let's just say 50K a year to run this office because that's just like there's this much money, there's a fixed pie, and 50,000 of it would come out. So my bottom line would be hit by that much, and that would just I just can't live off that. I can't do that. That no way, I can't do it. As opposed to what you just said earlier, is instead of saying, okay, that 50 though if done properly and managed properly, will increase the overall activity. It frees me up to do the things that
Mhm.
really go buy other offices, go recruit other agents, go do other things that really move the needle. So the 50 becomes 150,000 in extra revenue. So therefore, it didn't cost me anything. I invested 50 in this human capital and I made another 100 for doing so. And when you start to realize how that snowball works, it
Mhm.
changes everything. Now, I will say this, and I just had this I'm kind of faced with this right now because I need to hire some folks for Texas Titan Media, in particular in the social media space. And I had a interview with this girl, very sharp or whatever. But the thing is, with Texas Titan Media, my revenue is it's kind of like we're just now getting this thing to the point where we know how we're going to monetize some of the content and the things we're doing. And so I also take the approach if I can't immediately identify the return on investment. I put a
Yeah.
dollar into you, I get $2 out of you, then I'm probably not going to hire you right away. So what I've got to do is go figure out, okay, if I'm going to bring you on, just so that the two of us can have an expectation of what revenue add are you going what how much of my time are you going to free up? And then I did the same thing. Okay, this is going to take so many hours off my plate. And let's say if it takes 5 hours a week off my plate, well, that's $5,000. I mean, and you treat it like so that's $5,000 that by hiring this person for $1,000 a month, well, okay, that math works. So that's how I try to figure those things out. And it's not easy because no one especially, solopreneurs or just basically the CEO. I don't care if you're running a $10 million top line company, but you're considered still a small business owner. I guarantee you
Yeah.
most of them have never stopped to think, "What am I really worth on an hourly basis? What is my time really worth?" I just give all my time, all my sweat, all my energy. I don't have time to s
Yeah.
I just it is what it is. The job needs done, I do it. Instead of thinking, "Wait a minute. Am I really the person that needs to be doing this job, or should I outsource this because my time is more valuable and can make the company more money and improve the lives of those around me if I'm doing something that's more conducive of my value?" That's the way I approach
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, and I would also start because especially the solopreneur or even the small business owner, they may have like write down everything that you do in a week,
Yep.
in a month, and figure out what only you can do. Because there are tasks that you are doing that somebody else can do. You may be resisting on giving that up and delegating that, but when it comes to your business, like I couldn't have my personal assistant come in here and do this interview for me. I mean,
Right.
she would probably be able to understand and give good advice, but it's me, right?
Mhm.
I can't also have somebody else coach my client.
That's right.
That's me.
That's right.
But answering emails, answering inquiries, responding, going out and networking, that could be somebody else.
Mhm. Mhm.
But when it comes down to or writing, like I enjoy writing, I want it to be my voice. Yeah, my YouTube episodes, I could outsource that. I don't have to be the one sitting there editing everything. So really making a list of what you are actually doing and then what somebody else could take off of your plate so that you can do more of what's bringing in that money.
I guess it was, Peter Drucker who used to always say, "Automate, delegate, or eliminate." You've got it's gotta fall into some
Mm,
category if it and only
yeah.
and then like you just said, only leave the tasks that only you can do, and put those tasks under really harsh scrutiny, and by the way, I'm sitting here talking about this all confident like, I'm the world's worst at it. I try to do way, way more than I should be. I do things that I should absolutely never do. And so I don't have this completely figured out, but I do know that to do it right, you need to either automate it, delegate it, or eliminate it. And if you can't do one of those
Mhm,
three, then that leaves only you to do it. You better be able to justify it because what you just said, that's what frees you up to be able to have times like this, which builds your brand, builds gives more
mhm,
people understanding what Katie Highlander does and who she is, and that's stuff that only you can do. You are the walking billboard for your business, and so yeah,
mhm.
I think that's all good advice. All right, so number 5, I have a friend getting married next weekend. I had to buy the dress, cowgirl boots, pay for hair, nails, makeup, hotel room. This is why I hate getting invited to big fancy weddings that aren't in my hometown. Now she's saying we need to buy a coordinating rehearsal dinner outfit and is asking us to help cover the $1,500 remaining balance for the venue. God, I gotta talk to these parents that obviously are doing something different than me, that they have kids that would even suggest such a thing. I
Yeah.
don't feel this is normal and it's getting expensive. What would you do? Oof. Okay, that's wow. I mean, I'm coming at it from a dude and a dad.
Yeah.
So all the ladies listening to my response are gonna freaking not like it. But what would you do, Katie?
I wouldn't pay it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. That okay, your wedding is your financial responsibility. And yes, agreeing to be part of the wedding party, you know that there's going to be expenses there. You're going to have to buy a dress, you're going to have to do your hair, um nails possibly. But there are some things that go into I don't know, and again, it's just the budget of the bride and whoever is paying for the wedding, like, a hotel room, if you're wanting them all to stay, like, that should be an option for them if you are not going to cover that room, but that
Yes.
shouldn't be a requirement, and as far as I mean, she's already in this, she's already paid money, so what does she do from here on out? I would just sit down with her, and this is gonna be an emotional discussion, and tell her, start it off with, "This is really awkward for me." Just call it out so it's not so you can just name the elephant in the room. "This is really awkward for me, but I want to have this conversation with you. Um, I am not financially able to continue with these expenses." And you don't have to bring out your budget or say, this you've made me pay for X, Y, Z, A, B, and C. You can just say, I don't have the bandwidth to take on any additional expenses. Um, I still want to be in your wedding. I still want to support you. but I'm not able to do anything further than what I've already committed to. Um, and and if she's a good friend, I feel like she would be okay with that. And if not, then I feel like that's also kind of a reflection on what type of friendship that you have. Because also your friends don't want to put you in a financial bind, right? And just saying no in general, whether it's no to this or no to an invitation for a vacation or going out to dinner, you can just say, "Oh, I've already got a commitment."
Mhm.
You don't have to expand. The commitment could be to yourself that you're not gonna spend that money or whatever it is, but you don't have to expand and you don't have to explain. So I would say she definitely needs to have a conversation because being clear is being kind. And also, maybe in the future, for any other friends who ask you to be in a wedding, just say, I would love to stand up there and support you. Can you give me an idea of how much we're kind of looking at just so that I can be planning for the expenses for the wedding?
Yeah, so you're better than me because 'cause I'd be like, "Woman, you're out of your mind. What is wrong with you? I mean, are you freaking kidding me right now? I mean, this is the biggest bunch of jackassery I've heard of in my
Yeah.
life." I mean, look, first of all, you're asking your freaking bridesmaid, which is supposed to be an honor. It's not supposed to be a way to dilute the expense of your dream wedding that your parents either couldn't
Right.
afford or weren't willing to pay, and so you're gonna burden your bridesmaids with this. It's supposed to be an honor, and $1,500, that's steep. I mean,
I know. And
$1,500
that's
remaining
for the
balance for the
venue.
yeah, it's like, who
That's not
who
your responsibility.
no, I mean, I would yeah, and you know what I would do? I would say, "You know what, sweetheart? You're not getting off the hook this easy. If you need money, put it in the invitation. Why should we, the bridesmaids, be stuck with it? If you need money, ask all your guests. Charge. Do like on Father the Bride. Why don't you just charge for to come to the wedding? You know, it's a great event, great venue. Sounds like it must be a nice venue. So it's gonna be this Saturday, Saturday, Saturday. It's gonna be the wedding of the century. Come on down for
Yeah.
only $250. I don't know. That just sounds like a bunch of just clownish behavior that and how are her parents allowing her to I don't know. I have so many and okay, you know what? The bigger picture is I'm not offering any advice on this as I would just be the worst to be involved in this situation. So listener that posed this question, first of all, God bless you. You're much sweeter than I am to even pose this as a question other than just, just looking at your friend and going, yeah, I think I'm resigning from my role as bridesmaid
Mhm.
slash
Yeah.
benefactor for your wedding. But two, it's like I just I don't know. There's just so many things here I can't even get my mind around. Oh, I know what I was gonna say though. This poor husband. Woo. I mean, let's really go deep on this. If he's
Yeah.
marrying a girl that has these sort of expectations of friends to foot bills,
Mhm.
whoa. Whoa. Wow. I hope they are in some serious, serious I hope that's what I hope. I hope that this is you being very kind and an end around when really the couple getting married is really a financial coaching client of yours because I think you got some serious work to do with this young lady
Well, they're
on
not.
okay. Like, wow. She needs you. She needs a
Yeah.
reality check. So
Yeah.
that's
Well,
that's
and I feel like, yes, typically the parents of the bride pay for the wedding, but again, if the parents of the bride don't have that money, again, that's not an expectation. That would be a blessing, that would be a gift for them to pay for it. But if you are $1,500 short of coming up with the payment for the venue, that needs to be the bride and groom. If they are
yeah,
paying for their
absolutely.
wedding, they need to discuss how they are paying for the wedding. And that's a great exercise in how you're going to work together in your future finances.
And, couldn't agree more, and already, I feel sorry for I love the movie Bridesmaids, I think it's hilarious, and, they're shopping for their bridesmaids' dresses, and those are
Yes.
expensive, I mean, at least mostly, when I've been in weddings, as a dude, yeah, I have to rent a tux, so they all look the same, and
Hmm.
it can get kind of expensive, but still, it's like, okay, that's a part of it, I'm willing to do that for my friend, but to have to
Right.
come in and chip in to pay for essentially standard wedding stuff. Yeah, that's just not
Mm-mm,
being a good friend. So anyway, all right. Well,
mm-mm.
I'll back off on that one so we can wrap up these last two. That one just kind of
Okay.
fires me up. Wow. Um, I think there's a word. I think it says, should I move my traditional IRA to a Roth IRA? Is that even
Mm-hmm.
possible? I'm 53. If that matters, what's your take on that?
Okay. So the only hesitation that I would have with moving, you can't. Okay. So first off, yes, you can move your money from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. It's called a backdoor Roth. You can see here. That would create a taxable event. So if you were to move that, you would need to withhold some money to be able to pay taxes on it because a Roth is supposed to be funded with after tax money. Um, the only kind of hesitation that I have since she mentioned her age is that I don't know if I would go go to that extent. Again, I don't know how much money is in the traditional IRA, but you can invest in a you can open a Roth IRA today and just instead of contributing to your traditional, start contributing to your Roth. I don't know how many more years she's planning on working, because you can really build up some major money in that Roth. And I can't remember what the catch up date is, but there's a certain age. If you are over that amount, your the max amount that you can contribute is increased. But if you are single, you can contribute $6,500 a year. If you are married, it bumps it up to $13,000 a year. And then after a certain age, it increases a little bit more for catch up contribution. um, I don't know. I would say go ahead and open a Roth IRA. You can still invest in the same mutual funds or whatever you're investing in your traditional IRA. You can do that in the Roth. It's just a different umbrella that's being held over the investments themselves. But I would also reach out to a certified financial investor or advisor, the people who actually sell those investments. I don't sell anything. So this information is I don't benefit from it at all. Um and I would just reach out to them and ask what their take would be on transferring the money that's in the traditional IRA over to the Roth IRA. I think if she were younger, then I would consider it more, but I think I think at her age, it just is kind of a wash right now.
Couldn't Yeah, I agree. That's what I was gonna say because we don't know if she's 53, that's probably a pretty good chunk of cash if she's been saving, and so therefore
Mhm.
that taxable event is gonna hit her pretty hard, and so she's gotta
Yeah.
figure out how, even though she's gonna have the tax benefit of pulling it out in, say, let's say she starts tapping it in 20 years at 73,
Mhm.
you're still got to make up, and is it that big of a difference? Same thing you said. I mean, even if you get into the position of you're making too much money to contribute to a Roth, do the back door, pay the penalty on the 6,500, which isn't that much money, but you
Mhm.
get a Roth started and fund it through, 30 years of earning years. That makes sense. But yeah, that's she's in kind of a tough spot. But the good news is, I mean, if she's as long as she's got savings and she's 53 and just keeps trucking, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
open that Roth now. And then maybe let's say that she's 53 and she's making what, like 100. Let's say if she's married and she's making over 200, something like that, like maybe $200,000 a year, and so she's ineligible for a Roth. Well, then go ahead and open up a traditional, fund it for $6,500, then transfer that one to a
Yep.
Roth, and then start piling up. Because at 53, her earnings, especially if she's married, it may be over that threshold where she could just go in and open a new Roth. And if that's the case, do the back door, pay the penalty on the 6,500, and fund it for the rest of her life as opposed, and then keep funding the Roth. I mean, yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, but again, we
Yep.
have to know a little more data about what kind of dollars we're dealing with. Okay, cool.
Right. Right. Yeah.
All right. All right. So here is the final question of the day. These have been good. This has been fun. Kind of got
They've
my
been
blood.
great. It's
The,
fun.
some of them got my blood pressure up a little bit, and I've learned about there's some scamps out there that I don't know about, but whatever. All
Yeah.
right. Seventh and final question. Loan from 401k to pay off student loans or pay the higher interest rate on the student loans? Ooh, good one. You go. What are your thoughts?
Okay. I never suggest taking a 401k loan out. The only time that I would suggest doing that is to avoid foreclosure or to avoid bankruptcy. Um, and here's the reason. When you take a loan out for your 401k, you have to pay it back before you leave that company. And you may be like, well, I have no plans for leaving this company. It's a great company. But listen, you could get fired. They could have layoffs. You could have a change in leadership, and your boss is now a jerk. You could become disabled, or you could die. Okay.
Yeah.
All of those things create a situation where you no longer live there. You no longer work there. And when you no longer work there, your loan has to be paid back in full by the time that year's taxes are paid. And if they're not, then you have they consider it an early withdrawal. So you are taxed at your tax rate plus a 10% penalty for an early withdrawal. So I would say absolutely not. Also, you end up being taxed on it twice. Okay. So you aren't paying any taxes when you contribute. You pull it out. Okay. So, and then you're taxed. Then when you're putting it back in, you're putting after tax. Sorry, you pull it out. The money that you're putting back in to pay it back has been taxed because it came from your paycheck. And then when you get to retirement, if you have been contributing to a pre-tax plan, then you're taxed when you withdraw it then too. So you're taxed twice on this money. No, absolutely not. Get aggressive, get on a budget, be aggressive on paying back your student loans. You can do this without messing up your future with your 401k loan.
Yeah. Could not agree more. And by the time the good news is, I mean, don't student loans, most of them, I don't know this, I should. Most of them have a 25-year kind of like drop. I mean, you don't pay them past 25 years. Is that right? They aren't most of them if it's like on an income driven plan or there's some of them. So that
Mhm.
might have a deal too, where you look and you go,
Yeah.
well, mine, whether even if I have a balance, it gets forgiven after 25 years of on-time payment. So therefore, it'd be nice to just go ahead and do the math and figure out how much I plan to have in my 401k in 25 at the end of this time versus the student loan that might be forgiven. Again, you need to talk to your servicer and figure out if there's a plan you can get on for that or whatever. Again, it's definitely worth looking into. But the bottom line is, I'm with you. And a lot of people forget about that. They see that they've got a pretty nice chunk of cash. It's their money. They've saved it.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're about to have your house foreclosed on, you go through a COVID situation and you lose
Yeah.
your business or whatever. But unless that's the case, it's just, and you also lose all that earning power. I mean, that you pull out
Yes.
that amount of money because if you're borrowing against it, must be a pretty, you're not going to borrow 5 grand from a $150,000 balance 401k. So if you're say taking 50K out of your biggest nest egg for retirement, then you lose the earning power of that higher number that's compounding that you worked so hard to
Yeah.
build up to. So there's a lot of reasons why just that's should be kind of untouchable monies. So
Yeah. Yeah.
well, dude, Katie, I think we crushed some pretty good, questions. I think this audience right now is just going, "Wow, Katie's freaking amazing." Jason wouldn't shut up because he got so fired up, and I don't care about him mowing his yard and stuff, but, yeah, I think this is fun. Well done.
This was so fun. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Send in more questions. This would just be so much fun to continue these conversations.
Absolutely, yeah, please do. I gotta ask again because here's the thing, Katie and I, we do our best to try to figure out, okay, what people should know, what might pique their curiosity, but it really let's hear from you because here's the deal, if you have the question, then that means there are millions of others that have that same
Yes.
question. Even though we are all individually and wonderful, uniquely designed, we all have that where there's some commonalities. And so it's, I guarantee you, your question is not going to be the one that the whole universe says, "Huh, never heard that one before." So
Yeah.
bring it. We want to answer.
Yep.
So, all right, Katie, this was fun. As always, I appreciate you spending the time with the Jason Wright Show audience.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Jason.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Bye. The information provided on the Jason Wright Show podcast is for general informational purposes only and should not be construed as professional, financial, or investment advice. The content presented is based on the host's opinions and personal experiences, and it may not be suitable for all individuals. The hosts and guests of the Jason Wright Show are not licensed financial advisors, investment professionals, or registered representatives. Listeners are strongly advised to seek advice from qualified financial professionals before making any investment decisions. The content provided in this podcast should not be considered a substitute for personalized financial advice. Investing involves risk, and the value of the investments can go up or down. Listeners are encouraged to conduct thorough research and consider their own financial situation and risk tolerance before making any investment decisions. The past performance of investments discussed on the podcast is not indicative of future results. The Jason Wright Show podcast may include discussions of specific investment strategies, financial products, or market trends. Such discussions are for educational and informational purposes only and should not be interpreted as endorsements or recommendations. Listeners should be aware that financial regulations, laws, and tax rules can change and may vary based on jurisdiction. Any information provided in this podcast may become outdated or inaccurate over time. By accessing and listening to this Jason Wright Show podcast, you acknowledge and agree that the hosts, guests, and creators of the podcast shall not be held liable for any losses, damages, or expenses arising from your reliance on the information presented. You also acknowledge that any investment decisions you make are solely your responsibility. Remember to consult with a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions. Always do your own research and due diligence to ensure that any financial or investment strategies are appropriate for your individual circumstances.